Got to play to pay. Everybody ready?
Ready.
It is 7 o'clock by my phone. 7 o'clock, we have a quorum. Would you please rise for the pledge, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Budget 2019, a lovely exercise in spending more money than we have and negotiating and begging and pleading mostly on our part. Please don't bankrupt us. Jenny, this is kind of all in your wheelhouse, so if you want to take over, I'll just sit back and learn.
Well, I'm sorry. First of all, this is much earlier than when we normally start the process with the council, so that's why you're missing a lot of information. The Department of Local Government Finance recommends that I don't present information about revenues until our June bank reconciliation is done, because we have a truer picture of the first 6 months, and the state does not release the certified shares until towards the end of July, so I won't have accurate information to present to you guys until then. So the second meeting in August, this is usually when we start this process with the council, Umball will be here to do the presentation along with myself, just like we did last year. So this is just for the department heads to present to you their anticipated expenditures and their requests for 2019. And then as soon as I start receiving the information from the state, and I have a meeting first part of August with Don Ray with the Department of Local Government Finance, I will get you that information as it comes along. There's also an additional appropriation that we're going to have to do for this year. When Will and I worked together with Umball to establish the park fund for this year, which has worked out. I think Will's been happy with it. I've been happy with it. One thing, though, that we failed to do was we left Stan Wilson's salary in park fund, or we moved Stan Wilson's salary to the park fund, and it should have been left in the general fund. So I need to do an additional appropriation for that. And I need to do an additional appropriation for some funds in edit. And Stormwater had an unforeseen projects, and he has an additional appropriation. So those will be presented to you the second meeting in July, because they have to be publicized 10 days prior to the public meeting. So they will be in the Hendricks County Flyer Wednesday and the Republican on Thursday, July 4th and 5th. So I'm waiting to get that done as well to start forecasting for next year. So those are the reasons why that information is missing, but you will be receiving it probably August, and definitely for sure at the second August council meeting. The budget timeline is in here. Our public hearing will be September 17th, and then the final adoption of the 2019 budget is October the 1st. And we submit it to the state on October the 2nd. So those are important dates, which are here in your binder of when we move forward. I have passed out this evening the bond schedule that was not in the binder for our water, wastewater, public works communication bond, and the new police department bond with North Salem State Bank. Those are provided along with a payment schedule, and I handed those out as well to Chief Rainey. I have yours right here, to the department heads and chiefs tonight. So, Laura, do you want to just get started with?
Yeah, we can either start going through tab by tab if you want. Like Jenny said, there's some without information, or we can just skip right to the department head budgets, whatever the council desires.
Pleasure of the council. Do we want to go right to the departments, or do we want to start at the beginning and work our way back?
Cover it all regardless, or what?
I guess I should ask first, do you guys have any questions about the bond schedule, since I'm just now presenting that? It's each department's bond along with their payment schedules.
do we have a total of how much we have in bonds or out on bonds right now?
No, but I can get you one and email you.
Just kind of wondering.
I was looking at, I mean, basically.
Yeah. Add them up, find out how much money. Any questions about bonds? I'm kind of looking at the payoff
Say
days.
maybe 11 or 12, something like that. Ballpark.
Yeah, it has the first report has the series date and then the term date. So the term date is when they will be paid off and the series date is when they were opened. And I've listed them by payment due dates, so the ones that we pay in January, May, July, and November.
Any, you want to go with anything on the bonds?
No?
Okay, you want to start with, let's just start with the general fund and just run it tab by tab and be done with it. After the general, we go right to the departments anyway. I see on the first page that there's a line item about halfway through, just above the fiber lease, that says ordinance violations. Current budget was 0, selected budget was 1,000. What do we do with that $1,000?
Well, that's the revenue that we receive for ordinance violations, of course, and it just goes back into the general fund to be spent for, it just goes in as cash into the general fund to be spent on any general expenditures. What has happened with that the last 5 years, we've fought that battle many a times, where the smaller towns like us that don't have courts, even the smaller ones, are collecting our revenue, because right now, and there's some legislation that continues to be brought forward that hasn't been passed, that this is not a fair way to process, but all the ordinance violations for the county that do not have a court go into this bucket. And whoever prosecutes the most for their town receives all the money in the bucket, whether it's yours or not, for the county. So about 5 years ago, well, probably 4 years ago, that money started going to Coatesville, North Salem, the smaller towns. And on many occasions, Wes Bennett and DJ, the county clerk, and the county treasurer and myself have met. We met 3 times last year trying to figure out what we can do. Chief Rainey and I have talked about it as well. If we hire an attorney, which is what we did a couple years ago before Chief Rainey came on, we lost money because we were paying all this money and then we still didn't collect the revenue from the ordinance violations. So,
And this is all wrapped up in us talking about having a town court.
exactly. So,
And it's got to do with the number of cases that we prosecute as opposed to.
ticket, right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Okay, it's all coming back now.
So that's why that number, because in 2014, we collected $16,000, and that's how it always was. until I think the other smaller towns caught on to what was going on. Because we weren't really doing anything different, to be honest. I mean, it's just the other towns caught on, and now we have lost all that money. So that's why you've seen that budget go down the last 5 years. So I don't know, Chief Rainey and I had talked about getting together and trying to meet, I don't know if there's another way we can do, because now that we have a new parking violation officer, and we started, Chief Rainey and I met in January, and to try to solve, what we could do different, and something that we did start, Chief Rainey typed a letter. Do you want to explain this for our collections department? 'Cause when we partnered with the collection agency. Remember, he came before you guys and presented that. We partnered for the police department and for the water side. And so we have started that process. I think Chief Rainey writes a letter, Bernard calls, or maybe your staff calls, and then it comes to Courtney, who's our collections. And so we have, I think, seen a little bit of profit from that. So we're collecting, I haven't seen it report yet, but
I don't think it's been in play, but if they don't pay their,
so we have started that process. But it's probably going to take a while. But I know Courtney sent a couple letters, though, for tickets that he had brought down to her. So we've started the process.
So what is this $1,000? What's it for? What's it?
It just goes into the general fund, so it goes into the general cash, so any department can use it. And so it's part of our budgeting process, so it's anticipated revenue that,
So you were saying a few years ago, we get 14, 15, 16, so we're coming up with just a number to put in there.
I've averaged the
Minimal.
last 3
Okay,
years.
gotcha.
It's like we do on everything, I've just averaged the last 3 years, and that's what the average is. Because we do some things like false alarms, dogs barking, things like that, we do ourselves in-house. So we are receiving some revenue for those type of things. These are parking tickets and other higher, I guess, fractions. Is that fair, Chief Rainey? That goes through the court system. So any ordinance violation that goes through the court system
So if
is,
this program is effective, like it sounds like it probably, this category will
increase.
grow as we go. Okay,
Yes,
gotcha.
yes. And I think that he also now has a parking violation officer that is designated as a parking violation officer. So I think that we'll see that increase too, and with the process we have in place.
But unless and until the legislations change, it's very unlikely that we'll see the windfall we used to get from that bucket of money Jenny referenced. And the smaller towns will always beat us to it. Prosecution.
Because it's a crazy formula. They may have 4 parking tickets and prosecute 1 and they win. Even though we have 90 and maybe prosecute 20, the ratio of violations to prosecutions is how they calculate it.
Doesn't sound right.
Makes no
Doesn't
sense.
smell good. So you're trying to stop that.
Yes, we are working hard on that. Meeting with the county and, as far as we look at the general fund revenue, since we're talking about that, Barry and I met several times looking at the building permits. Everything else is pretty much staying the same. I can't, until certified levy, like I said, is released the end of July, I can't anticipate property taxes and circuit breaker and those type of things, because I'd just be throwing a dart in the air. But Barry, I'll let Barry explain the building permits of how we came up with that dollar amount.
Basically, the last couple of years, we've had quite a few permits, and we're physically running out of lots in town to build on. So there's just a number of lots that are available, and based on that number, we lowered the revenue that we thought was going to come in. Now, it may come in if 4 Oaks builds 2 sections, then we might stay the same, but after that, there's a limited amount of lots for new construction. It's just that simple. So, but something else may pop up, you never know. We just lowered it because we thought that would be the best thing to do instead of going high.
Why such a big change in the miscellaneous?
Because the way that the previous administration would calculate that would be based on insurance reimbursements and those type of things, where really they shouldn't be allocated as miscellaneous reimbursements. Right before Amy left, she wanted to clean that up. You guys will probably remember. She wanted to take away miscellaneous reimbursements altogether, and designate those more into the categories that they match. So that's why that has gone down drastically to,
So that,
because it's
that total
really.
number's probably still there, but it's spread out.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Spread
You'll
out.
yeah. I will be right back while you guys are reviewing that. And if Chief Rainey wants to start, do you want to go by, Laura, do you care? Do you want to just go by number, department, or?
All the tabs and binder.
Yeah.
Easy for everybody.
Okay. He wants to start, I'll be right back.
Chief Rainey, come on up.
Mr. President, and Town Council members.
Chief, there's a note here that says, Chief Rainey shared belief that we need another SRO at the school if it can be worked out in the budget. Why?
Pardon?
What data do you have that supports that we should have another SRO?
Well, I think, starting off with something local, back when we had our own threat at the high school, February the 20th, and very substantiated that it was a legitimate threat. It wasn't just a threat at one location. It was a threat even within different days at different locations by the same person. We had 5 witnesses that testified, come in to give us information. Some of them was called back in. Looking at that, I think approximately maybe 800 students in the high school, maybe 2,500 students, what I've been told, within the whole school corporation, with one school resource officer for really 6 different locations. We have the high school, North Elementary, South Elementary, the alternative school, the administrative building, the school corporation headquarters, as well as the middle school, with one school resource officer. And I know in the month of February in Indiana alone, I think there was about 14 or 15 school threats throughout the state. Obviously, it's hitting us nationally, but it's also hitting us in the state and hit us here at home. I feel like a great collective effort with the school corporation to get us the information around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I believe we had an arrest somewhere around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock that evening when we were talking to people. I don't think that one person can cover that, and that's why I believe there should be another one. With the current school resource officer, Matt Oliphant, wears many hats on the department, and at times is pulled from the school for details here at the police department or out in the field with the officers, from radio problems in the car, portable radios, computers, as well as then with any kind of IT problem or computer problem that we have with that. And, you know, again,
But should he be polled? Well, isn't it his primary duty during that time to be at the school and not working on our computers? There's got to be somebody else in your department.
there's no one else that I know of, or no one else has
Why
come
don't you
forward.
use the place that everybody else uses? Because he's here every day. And
And that's,
he's in this building every day.
yeah.
And I don't think that if he was at the schools from 8 to 4, we'd even be considering this.
I think if he was there 8 to 4, again, that's one person trying to cover all these different locations. There's times he gets called here to the alternative school that doesn't have anything to do with the campus there at the high school, or he's at North Elementary as well. So one person, no matter who it is.
Elementary is included in the 4 schools.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
North Elementary is included in the 4 schools. I mean, I don't think we can make a very good judgment on this until we know he's at the schools, the 4 schools, or whatever you say they are, from 8 to 4 every day.
And I disagree with you.
That's fine.
I know in the email you sent me, you said that he was in my office 50, no, you said 50% of the time, every day of the week. That's 4 hours a day, and you also said behind closed doors. That is not accurate.
I didn't say every day, did not say that.
I've got it right here.
Okay, well, that's beautiful, I don't remember what I said, whatever. But that's what I hear and what I see. The car's always here, it's always in your office.
Not-
Should be at the schools. Does he eat lunch in the school 4 days a week like it says in the contract? No. He eats with you guys. Follow the contract, and then maybe we'll look at another one. That's my opinion. I'm only one vote.
I work in this building, I very seldom see his car here.
You sit down there, he comes down here, he parks back here, and comes up.
How do you know?
Because I see it.
Chief, what's the
You're here as often as I am?
feeling of the school corporation, who's also 50%
I
responsible?
bet you do.
Okay, we're losing focus.
To answer your question, I've met with School Superintendent Dr. Schaefer. I've also talked to him as late as Saturday morning on the telephone. Jenny had set up a meeting that, our normal annual meeting that her and Gary and the school superintendent, assistant school superintendent has annually to discuss the contract between the school and the town, to where we look at our budgets and we talk also about mass performance. We talk about maybe even some incidents at the school and how it's being handled. And again, like I said, recently I talked with Dr. Schaefer. They're very pleased with the job that Matt does. He feels that in the meeting that Gary Aiken and I had with the school superintendent and assistant school superintendent, they were in agreement. They feel that we need another officer there. And we discussed it a little bit, and it was all depending on enrollment by the school to see what kind of budget the school had, and then to see what kind of budget that the town had. Dr. Schaefer's statement to me over the phone was that the school pays for 50% of the school resource officer's salary and benefits and so forth, which is that around $38,000, Jenny, or close to that?
Yes.
And he said that he feels that they get way more than 50% of Matt's time and Matt's effort in his job at the school.
So are they willing to pay more then?
That has never been discussed as far as I know. I know since I've been here, we've been able to increase that amount to where it also covered, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think where it also covered half of the benefits, where before it was just half of the salary. And plus during that time, there had been a promotion, maybe $2,300 or $2,400, that they covered half of that as well. So we're actually, the last couple of years, above what we were getting before.
I personally think, and from discussions we've had in this day and age, I can't believe that there's any objection to the thought process of having, if it's possible, we're still in the if it's
Yeah.
possible stage is where we're at. Excited about the second one, so we're not in surrounding school district. I think we're one of very few that only has one.
I'll answer that question too, because when Chief Rainey and I met, I had told him that I would reach out to the Hendricks County Sheriff's Department because they provide school resource officers for Tri-West and Cascade, and they do have more than one. I don't know if it's like 1.5, if it's 2. They weren't able to give me an exact number. But for both schools, the Hendricks County Sheriff's Department's reimbursed 80% of the school resource officer's salary. So just to give you guys an example, and
Where was the talk a few years ago about the school just taking over? Hire their own, do their own thing.
And we talked about that last year. I haven't talked to Dr. Schaefer about that this year. Has he mentioned it to you at all?
That didn't come up in our meeting this year.
I agree completely with Jim. As we know, just a few short weeks ago, we had this in Noblesville, Indiana, very close to us. We know people, I personally know people that were affected by that. And any thoughts that if we have the funds to cover the cost of another SRO, I think it's irresponsible on our part not to consider it.
Do note it, and I don't, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I definitely agree with that. I think we need another officer. I feel that you're close to the coalface, you know what's going on there. And I think that's a very, very key place, what we protect in our town, our children. And I really think that we should have 2 people there.
I'm concerned about, number one, budget, and number two, if Matt's getting pulled out of the schools so that he can work on a police computer or some kind of communication, then we're doing, or the department is doing a disservice by pulling him out, protecting those children. I work at that school.
Hence the
Okay.
need for
So,
another one.
Well,
Then you need
or
2
shifting.
full. You're gonna have 2 full.
Well, we could do that
No,
too,
one
but we
full and
also,
one part-time
well,
and your own
also, then Matt's got too much on his plate and it needs to be taken off.
I think there,
So he should be a dedicated school resource officer, not wearing many hats.
the short time I've been here, I know he has always been strongly utilized for his tech skills. He
Yes,
is a tech guy.
agreed.
He has also been incredibly well-received at the school, based on what the school corporation tells us.
They do love him. They do love you.
I think, to me, it seems like his strong suits are being utilized. There are times when it sounds like it's a little thin. You know, we do have 4, 5, 6, whatever it said. It's tough to be everywhere at the same time. On top of that, the way the world is now, how do you not try to have
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing we're a relatively small town too, and we have 2 or 3 officers on shift. If something, God forbid, happened, schools, they're 3 to 4 minutes away.
I don't think they have I think there's a lot of specialized SRO training, I believe.
And I've got no problem with that, but once again, then he needs to be dedicated. Like you said, he's got great tech skills, but when he's doing tech here, he can't be protecting any of the 6 buildings.
I agree more with that, yeah.
So,
If the school thinks they need 2 full time, that are there 100% of the time, but not 1.5.
about 50%. No, 50% salary. Do you think that the school should
I
step
think they
up
should
and
pay
pay
more than that.
If the county's getting reimbursed 80%, shouldn't that be a standard?
yeah, we would have, I haven't been able to
I mean,
share that
takes-
information
That takes the
yet.
financial burden off of us a little bit, which is a big concern on my part.
Well,
And
what
it
I
allows us
was,
to get a second SRO. And then, again, Matt's got to be at the buildings. He can't be here fixing a computer problem when there's a problem at school, even though it's a short drive.
What's the expense of tech guy to take care of all the tech stuff? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, you may just have to cross-train your employees. So instead of just one guy being the tech guy, you may need a tech guy on each shift.
So are we talking about, are we not wanting another officer there, or are we talking more about the money? So, I
I'm
mean-
talking about utilizing Matt as a full-time SRO. Okay, Chief has already told us that he wears many hats.
Correct.
And given us examples of things that Matt does above and beyond. I'm suggesting that Matt be dedicated towards the schools, 100%.
Okay,
Okay, I see Matt, I'm doing summer school and Matt's at school.
sure.
Now, is Matt doing school stuff or is Matt doing town stuff? He's doing town stuff, what's he doing in the school? Doing school stuff.
So is this a more problem of where the money is coming from, rather than two people?
I don't know, because I haven't researched it enough. I do know, based on what Chief has said, that Matt is stretched thin. So my question is, why is Matt stretched thin? If it's because he's doing things here or for the department outside of the schools, then that's a managerial problem, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Okay.
get down to.
And
Where's
then
the
the
problem?
second one would be if there's so much activity at the school that we need a second officer, then let's try to get one funded. Third, let's make sure that we have the money. If we get a grant and it runs out after 3 years, then we're gonna be responsible for that.
And we were with the Safer Grant, which we
Yeah.
hired how many firemen?
Yeah, I know. Well, we have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I'm just saying, I don't want to shortchange the opportunity to look at a grant for that reason, because.
Oh, no, I wouldn't either.
Frankly,
It's not
several
what-
years
it's
ago,
not what
I
I'm
brought
saying.
that up when we did the firemen, and we said, don't worry, we'll make it work, and we made it work. So I'm just saying the same thing.
We have two guys there, both of them 100% of the time.
Okay, can I say two things, please? The first thing is that on the firemen, that a lot of that is contributed by Center Township. So we were able to make up the difference in those hiring. Once that grant expired because of Center Township.
But
That
at
was
the
a-
time it was presented, I don't think that was the proposal.
Okay, that wasn't under my
Bart, do you
machine, but
remember that? Do you remember how that was proposed?
We had originally brought it before the town as a possibility, but we were denied. Our government contacted us and said, grant has been approved. We will do it. Center can-
And something else, which I haven't talked to Dr. Schaefer or Chief Rainey about, but maybe there's the possibility that the school does with the grant, I don't know what their grant looks like, I don't know if it has a car and those type of things, but maybe it's something that the school can take on hiring an additional school resource officer, I don't know. But that's something we can talk about, I think.
He never mentioned anything about, during that meeting that Gary and I had with him, that the grant would have anything to do with the salary.
Okay.
It was, and Matt can probably answer for this. What, they're using it for this.
And it can be used for SRO salary?
Yeah, that's how. That'll cover those costs.
I feel the job that Matt has is specialized. You get an officer, so Matt's not there, and we get an officer off the street to go in there, and they say, go to Mike's class. They might not know where that's at. And time would be important if there was a problem at the school. I feel with Matt knowing the layout of the school, where the offices are, what's behind the doors, what he may be able to do to get kids out or get them protected, I don't think just anybody, one of our officers just to slot in there would be that good. I think another officer like Matt that would know all that information, that specialized job, would really be beneficial to us as a town. I think it's puts us out on a limb to have just one officer in our school. I think two, and how we ever could pay for that, we could probably figure that out. But I really think we should have two people associated with the school.
And I think for a long time, keep in mind, this is a 50% reimbursement. I think the discussions years ago when this all started that I remember was, because it's a 50%, yes, he's at the school most of the time, but if there's other duties that related to the town, we are paying half of his salary. And so we've utilized his services the best that we can. I'm not saying we don't need it. I think we do need a second one, but I'm not saying that it's mismanagement because he spends part of his time doing town-related stuff. We pay half his salary.
A lot of the details that he's on, I see it as officer safety, community safety issue as well. Matt will tell you, there's times he comes that somebody's radio is not working. We're going to put them on the street and the radio doesn't work, or their computer doesn't work. They don't have any communication with dispatch or any of the other officers. Those are things that he would get called down there for. A lot of the,
And what happens when Matt's not there that day?
and that concerns,
Are you going to put that officer out without radio?
that's a concern.
Then cross-train your people.
That's easier said on technology.
Okay.
That's fine too, but it also saves us money.
But you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. I'm sure Matt would prefer not to do everything he does. I'm sure he'd prefer not to be contacted at home at 10 or 11, 12 o'clock at night with somebody that's got a problem, that he doesn't even turn in for any kind of comp time or pay. So if you ask Matt, he'd probably say, yeah, I'd rather not do all that if I didn't have to.
And Matt's been doing this stuff long before Chief Rainey came.
But he wasn't a school resource officer.
Wait a second.
He was a school resource officer prior to me coming here.
Yeah, and I think the general consensus was that it was greatly appreciated that, of what he did do.
Yes, absolutely.
You have something to say, Matt?
Yeah.
What's your opinion? You can hear you, Matt.
Majority of the time, I take care of the problems that arise. School. So if somebody's computer's not working, they come out to the school and meet me. I'm here maybe once a week. I don't know where you see me at, but I'm here maybe once a week. There's a lot of times I don't even take a lunch because I take my lunchtime fixing someone's computer or fixing a radio or working on something. I use my office at the high school for everything, the police department stuff, the school stuff. That's where I'm there all summer. I've been working on school town projects. Got a big vehicles coming in. There's all kinds of different projects going on. Got a golf outing coming up. We have a national night out coming up. So a lot of times I'm working on stuff, town stuff at the school, not here. If I'm here, it's usually upstairs, the alternative school. You pass my office, you see me, I'm there every day.
I do. I see a lot.
You know, and then if 2 hours out of my day in the morning is traffic related, and 2 hours in the evening is traffic related, so I have 4 hours of traffic control for the school.
Well, could another officer do that to free you up?
With the traffic control?
Yeah.
It would help. Because I have a built-in half an hour of overtime every day. Before I took over, the previous school officer was taking an hour of overtime every day, and I trimmed that down to a half an hour. So I come in at 7:15 and I leave at 3:45. But again, two hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, 4 hours is traffic control only. So, and then, you know, like I said, 90% of the time I skip my lunch trying to get stuff done for the day.
I'm going to say something. It's not going to be a popular statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. If it weren't for the personalities involved in this discussion, this wouldn't even be a discussion. There wouldn't be a single person up here that would discount the fact that we need all the help we can at the school. And we've had resources available to us for many years. I've been on the council 10 years, many years. And until these people start doing these responsibilities, there hasn't been anybody complaining. So let's keep things into perspective. We've got to protect the town here. We've got to protect the kids in our town here. And we got to do what's best. And I don't think these discussions are serving the purpose of doing what's best. My opinion. My vote.
A couple things back to.
Wow.
A couple things back to.
It's
Just stop.
both of you. Matt, go.
A couple
please.
things back towards computer stuff. It's hard to train someone else because they get their hands in it, it doesn't get fixed, and then I got to come back and try to fix what they screwed up. If I had somebody in mind, I would have the help come in, but right now there's nobody who's had any interest at all in helping. A few years ago, former Chief Wright actually removed me from doing computer stuff and hired somebody from the outside. I'm still cleaning up stuff that guy did. So it would be hard. It'd be really hard to hire somebody from the outside. I mean, if you hire someone from the outside, it's going to be expensive. You kind of get what you pay for. So, I mean, we're just kind of stuck in a catch-22 here.
I know for a fact you're here more than one time. We go into it, number one. Number two, if you like admin so much, why don't we move him to admin and get two new police officers?
He didn't say he liked it, he said he does it.
Matt,
I'm not arguing, I'm just
question for you. Would a second SRO help you?
It would. You know, I've got some ideas. If we were to get another one, they'd probably be stationed at the middle school. There's a pretty big need there. I get called there quite a bit. for various things. It would help with traffic. You could alternate traffic days. I could take one day, they could person take the next. So to eliminate the overtime, somebody would come in at 7:15, the other guy would come in at 8, something like that.
Chief Rainey, did Dr. Schaefer indicate that this grant was a lock, that we've got it, that this
No.
month? No. Okay.
And there's never been any indication to me that it would be used for salary. I think there's some technology things that they're wanting to do that
The
you
last-
talked about, but never for salary, to me.
The last 3 or 4 years, we've used it for cameras.
Okay.
I think recently we've replaced some doors at South Elementary.
I think there's a new notification system too that he's looking at.
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
So I have a suggestion for the council, if you're willing to hear it. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. Say it anyway. It would be.
President, you get to do it twice.
No, I'm just one vote, Dick Burrows. What I would like is possibly to explore this issue a little bit deeper. I think we probably need a meeting between the council, Chief Rainey, Matt, and possibly Dr. Schaefer, so we can kind of clear the air, get some facts down here, find out exactly what we're talking about. Because we don't know if there's money available, and I don't want to start building up some false hopes or heading down one direction when the finances aren't there. I sure don't want to lead the public on and say, well, we're going to get a second SRO when we don't even know if that money is going to be available to be able to do that. No offense, but I can almost guarantee within an hour after me leaving this building that there's going to be something on some social network about Danville getting a second SRO or a fight breaking out in the town hall because of an SRO. And,
I think it would be great if it hit social media, said that they're seriously considering any effort, any available possibility of doing that.
posted.
I think from the word go has been, if we can figure out a way to fund it. I mean,
I have a problem
that's
is
been
people won't listen that far. They hear second SRO and that's it.
That kind of like sidewalks.
That second position would be multifaceted. It'd have different things. It'd have an education piece, it would have a counseling piece, safety piece. It's going to have,
So you've thought this through, but you need to share that information with us. If we don't have this information, I'm hearing it for the first time, and I'm seeing it just as a little written note here, rather than a whole plan.
I mean, that's kind of my role too, though, as counselor, educator, safety officer. I mean, I
Okay, well,
get,
you see me almost every day at school. Why don't you fill me in? You know where my classroom is. Really not that hard. Hop in and say, hey, we're doing this.
I mean, it was Chief Rainey's idea to
He
add the
knows where my
schools.
classroom is too. He's popped in. I appreciate that. Okay, anything else about this?
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah. I think this is more of a problem than just one situation here. When you run a business, you let the man run the section he's doing. And we have a lot of people trying to run that business that shouldn't be running that business, that have no skills running that business. And if we let the chief do his job that he's been training for all these years and manage it properly, I think it would go a lot better. We seem to focus only on the police. We don't focus on any other superintendents and call their people and that. And I guess, Dennis, I'm talking about you. You're texting and emailing, and you want to run the police department.
I don't want to run the police department. I want to be informed, Tom. I
And
want
I
to be
think,
informed, and
I
I'll
think
end
you
it
should
at
keep your
that.
nose out of the police department.
As long as I'm a voting member of this council, I'll do it however I see fit.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
you have to follow
I
a,
don't
you know,
have
it's
to
like when you
follow
get a
anything.
job.
You seem
work
to
for
think I
somebody.
do.
Tom,
You work for a job, you work for a manager. You have a system on how to do that. And that's how the world works. You're trying to
Police
undermine
and
this
fire
thing all the time.
I don't know
Hey.
anything.
Stop it, or I'll call this meeting and we can come back and do it again. Understood? Anything about police? Thank you. Move on to the next department. Fire EMS.
Good evening. My budget really has no significant changes. I requested no changes in the first page, which I believe is called page 9, which is the operating line items. And I've requested all those line items to stay the same. Page 10, I am requesting an addition of $3,416 in the salary and wage line item. If you've utilized Excel at all, you know there's formulas that go into the cells, and when we calculated the salaries last year, one of the cells didn't grab the formula, and it was short the $3,416. The reason I don't have to come to you and ask you for that additional appropriation this year, we actually saved that money in the long run by waiting a couple of months before we hired the new employees, plus they're on probation for 6 months, so the line item was able to absorb it. But next year, when they're at 100%, that line item will be tested. And again, that $3,400 will actually be split with Center, so it'll be about $1,700 roughly. Next page is the donation income. It's hard to tell what that's going to be from year to year. You know, a lot of that money comes from people whose, maybe a family member has passed and they want to bequeath the fire department some money. So you just don't know what that's going to be. And then the last item is the expenses. Very seldom. I put $1,400 because, again, I just don't know. I've never spent that much out of it, but, you know, I have to put an amount for State Board of Accounts, so that's why that amount's on there.
What gets paid for out of that?
Lately, nothing, because we used to buy flowers, and we can't do that anymore, so.
I thought that's what they used
Yeah,
to do.
and so there's really not a lot it can be used for. So really, at this point, if there's an item that the budget doesn't sustain, then I'll buy it out of the donation fund, but.
Like trinkets, you've purchased like things for the parade and
Yeah,
those
like fire
type of
prevention
things,
material
fire
or
prevention
candy
material.
for parades, things like that, We've grabbed, once, the fire prevention budget's expended, we've grabbed money out of the donation fund to pay for that type of stuff. So that's my budget in a nutshell. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Chief Morgan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Parks Department.
Right. So I kind of did my own Excel spreadsheet. So I take what Jenny's numbers and I just kind of fill it in and do like the 5-year forecast there. So the first one, that first page there, pretty much what we were planning after meeting with Umball and Jenny is to kind of vacate the general fund accounts, and pretty much this first page is the general fund account. So everything in 2019 is zero. So flip the page. The next page is just a summary of that new Parks and Rec fund and what we have in 2018 and what we're expecting in 2019. Really no changes there on the top in the 204 Parks and Recreation Fund. The 204 Parks and Recreation Fund operations. In that one, this is where we're moving pretty much our salaries, the full-time employee salaries. We're moving them to the Parks and Rec Fund. So it's pretty much just like a transfer over to the other fund. No real numbers are changing. It's just getting moved over. The only change in the 204 fund for the rec fund operations is we've had some issues getting summer help. 18-year-old kids now. We used to be able to hire 16, 17-year-olds to do, lawn mowing and all that kind of stuff. Well, the OSHA guidelines have changed, and now they can't operate a weed eater and they can't operate a mower. And so it's pretty much, we have no use for them. So what we're looking to do is maybe transition that into a 3-season laborer. We've had really good success of kind of hiring like the retirees that, come in and they'll take care of the mowing, and, it's a lower cost. The only change in that would be, so the 3-season, there's a difference of $3,282.67 if I hire the 3-season worker. Plus, they work longer. They'll give us 697 hours, where the seasonal is 10 weeks for 40 hours, so 400 hours.
Can you still use like 16 and 17-year-olds as lifeguards?
Yeah, we still use 16, 17-year-olds for lifeguards. We're talking the maintenance side.
Okay.
And we really
Yeah.
need the maintenance side.
Yeah.
Lifeguards, we actually, this year, we were allowed to hire 15-year-olds because they can get their certification, which was really nice because it helped us get full staff for the first time in, I'd probably say 7 years. So that was a really nice feature, and just working with Jenny on that, getting that to go ahead was pretty awesome. So helped a lot. So that's really my only request in there, is that difference was the $3,000 so that I can get the 3-season worker instead of, we actually did find one this year, but it's a rarity. The past couple years, we pretty much had them, here's a shovel, you need to go pick up trash and stuff. And it almost is not even worth having them there, which is unfortunate because we do like to have the younger guys around too there.
We couldn't drive like a gator?
But what did they do? Because most of the things that they do, they have to be, that it has to be a small engine, really, pretty much. So
Did not know that.
I know it's hurt Ray too pretty bad. I mean, we used to have 3 summer staff apiece, and it was great, having them in there because they could do a lot of the kind of the grunt work, and get that done. But now it's like, I mean, you got to send some with them to do anything. So it's like it's rough. So that one, pretty much all those other ones are the same. Let's see here.
13 grand for another mower, huh?
Yeah, and that's just a request. So, I mean, usually we do a mower every other year. Sometimes it's come from Rob's helped me out. And, I could talk to Ray about that too whenever they're doing their rotation. But Jenny told me to put it in there because it is something that we need. We have to rotate out the mowers because, I mean, we mow a lot of acreage and we maintain them pretty well so they do last quite a long time. But once they start to go, they can nickel and dime you to death. So.
And if you guys will remember, 4 years ago, well, I think, 2011, 12, 13, we always would put in a line item for new equipment, and it kind of rotated to each department each year. And when we cut back on the budget restraints and when the tax, levies really started affecting us in circuit breakers, that was one thing we did away with. So, and what I always tell the chiefs and the department heads is, put your request in.
Yeah.
Look at the big picture, because when you need it, you need it. And
Yeah.
maybe we can't do it this year, but Will can say, well, I've been asking for 3 years, for this mower. So that's how I look at it.
Brad used to say the same thing.
Very true, very true. So just jumping down to the 204 Parks and Rec Fund pool, all that I see kind of staying the same. We're doing some good stuff there, and hopefully we're looking like we're having a really good year this year too. So maybe we can help
People
fix
in
some
there
of
all
those
the
things.
time.
I know it's doing really well.
2 weeks of 90-degree weather.
You have enough lifeguards?
Yeah, we're doing great on lifeguards this year. Adding the 15-year-old thing really helped because we got that little gap that we always missed. So go ahead, the next 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages, 7 pages, 8 pages, 9 pages. All right, yeah, there. So back to my Excel again. So at the top it says 306 non-reverting fund. It's the darker.
Yellow posted on the bottom?
Keep going past one past that one. One past the year to date
Oh,
on
yeah,
fitness.
yeah.
correct?
Different font.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So in this one, fitness center income. This is all the incomes. Everything's good. The only thing we're doing is we changed some positions around. So the sports program income is now going to be joined with recreation income. So those will kind of combine. Also, we added in, it's kind of new to our eyes here, is the rec impact fee, the park impact fee there too, and that's that savings account that we passed a year and a half ago to try to grow for trails and parks. There's not a lot of money in there, but it's for the future, really. That's kind of our savings account. And we use pretty much Barry's estimates to kind of grow off of that. Rentals, we're kind of at a plateau, the Blanton House, and we'll talk about that in fees coming up in a couple meetings. Then that rec program combined with sports, it's good there. And then Winterland income is pretty much the same. So go ahead and flip the page, then flip the page again, and flip the page again. Back to that good font again on there, the darker font. And then these are my projections for 2019 for expenses in the non-reverting. So really everything is kind of staying in the same realm. No real big changes except again with the fitness center expenses. We'd like to remodel the bathrooms in there. They're really old. And they also are not handicap accessible, so we'd like to put some money into kind of making those an upgrade. Plus, it'll help Barry on the building. We have a lot of hot water issues over in that side, so we're going to try to fix those. Also, the chiller is something that we would like to, or air handler. We'd like to move the air handler in there. It's taking up a bunch of space, and it was set for pretty much to have, a cafeteria with a hot kitchen going and all that stuff. Now we don't have that, so we can downsize, which will save us some money. Also, we're willing to put that money forward because it helps the building. Plus, it also gives us more space, which we can use to add more equipment and that kind of stuff. And we'll be taking down some walls and stuff too. Hopefully, getting that all done in 2019. But we may actually start in 2018, depending on where we are in some of our other projects.
Budget or
Yeah. I'm still waiting on numbers back from Playcore on that, and I spun it two ways too. One just doing the swing, and one doing a built-in with it. The only problem is with what we have now in Playscape, Leathers won't let us actually add to Playscape. The Leathers and Company, that's the company that pretty much kind of like ran the back end of putting Playscape together, and that. So there's insurance and stuff involved with making any changes to existing, so it would have to be its own space no matter what. So when I get those numbers in, I'll send them over to you, and we can kind of work on a plan from there. So, no problem. Blanton House, we're looking to fix the roof and do some landscaping, just general upkeep. The roof is really bad. And we have like a leak that comes out occasionally, and I believe it's the roof. I'm waiting for the next hailstorm, and maybe we can get that claimed. But for the most part, we got a plan on taking care of that roof next year no matter what. And we have gutters coming too, so that should be hand in hand. So those, we'll pretty much be infrastructure-wise really solid at the plant house too. Rec program expenses, like I said before, those are combined with the sports now because they're all in one. And then Winterland expenses, we did buy some equipment this year to kind of last. We bought 6 pieces, I think, 6 or 7 pieces, and the expense is going to be 50% this year and 50% next year. So I just put the 50% in there for next year.
Is the new building being utilized for?
Yes, the new building is amazing. Yeah, it's just like what we call it, Santa's Workshop.
Yeah.
We got power coming from the top. We got everything stacked in there. We got cubbies for everything. It's really cool. Sometime if you ever get a chance, you should come down and check it out because it's really nice. And we've got room to expand for probably the next 10 years too, which is the best part. Okay, that's probably it for that page.
Can you stuff any more into the park for Winterland?
Yeah, we've got some new cool changes coming up that are going to kind of blow everyone's mind.
Well, then you can get the annex over at Aikens.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, we talked about that, but the electrical expense alone would be
You have to have a power
huge.
company
Yeah,
come in and sponsor all the infrastructure.
yeah,
I'm gonna need it anyway one of these years.
yeah. I know. Get too
Got a
big.
nice drive.
Yep. So non-reverting.
Buzzards, we got it made.
Yeah, exactly. If they could
Santa's
only put in
little
light
buzzards.
bulbs. So I don't really have much more. This is just, I know it says fitness center income, but I think that's actually donations. You see that big spike in 2017, that was a donor for the pickleball courts. We wouldn't be able to do what we did without that donor. But we pretty much, used all those funds. So now it's back to pretty much around $1,500 is what we bring in. So, and that's pretty much it for me. Yep, that's it. Any questions? Sorry, it's kind of wordy.
It's all right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good evening, Mr. President and Town Board. My budget is pretty much the same as it has been, with one exception on office or other supplies. It was $15,000, and what I would like to do is make that $10,000 and take $3,000 and make that for uniforms, and $2,000 of that for office supplies. Reason being, I know the shape of the men's uniforms are getting pretty ragged, and we're going to have to buy some uniforms this upcoming year. And office supplies, we're in the process of upgrading in computers and so forth, and I just paid for a new monitor, so as we grow, we're going to need more office. Pretty well going down through there. Everything is the same. You see the notes down there on overtime, not this year, but this is just a note. I would like to see the overtime raised by $25,000. A lot of our time is turned into comp time, and then in the summertime, the guys are wanting to take their snow plowing time off, and it makes it tough to get summertime projects done. If we paid them overtime, then they would be here during the summer to work as well. And that's pretty much mine. Mine's pretty staying the same.
Jenny, does paying overtime to hourly, does that comply with your?
Yes.
I thought you had to pay hourlies with overtime,
When-
exempt with.
No, when, we have to pay them time and a half. So even if we're paying them time and a half in comp time, we can't just give overtime as straight time.
Oh, I understand that. My thing is, I thought it had to be actual paid hours versus comp time.
No, my guys, since the third meeting of the year has been
Oh, I
on
know.
comp time.
I understand. I just,
They,
the way I understood
They're doing.
employment law, that
that was
Was not right.
presented by the state to change that. I can't, maybe 2015, I can't remember the exact year. It was not fully passed. What was passed at that point was that if an employee worked 30 hours or more, they had to receive benefits. But the overtime was not passed. Just what was passed is if you have to, hour for hour, so over 40, we can still offer comp time if the employee signs that they are willing to accept comp time. It just has to be at time and a half or 1.5 hours for any time over. So
Each employee, can he pick and choose? Can they pick and choose if they?
that is up to the individual chief or superintendent, but whatever they work out, like when we sat down and met, when there was so much snow and I got really, really nervous, and we sat down with the Public Works
I think I remember
employees
that.
and explained everything to them, and that's kind of what they're doing now. They went to comp time then, and in order for Ray to be able to get the guys to work the concerts this summer when it's nice out and nobody wants to be working, an incentive is he's paying them overtime, and he has sufficient funds in his budget because he cut back so much and started offering comp time. And the guys are using their comp time, and, we're watching it very closely, and so they're not building a lot of comp time either. They're using it, and like Ray's taking off Fridays when he can this summer, and so it's, yes, to answer your question, the answer is yes, but it's at the discretion of the
Okay,
department
so are
head.
you saying, like, in your department, it's department-wide right now, it's set up,
Department-wide,
department-wide, it is set up to where if somebody works overtime, they do not get extra pay in their paycheck, they
no,
get comp time,
they get time off.
they get time off.
Time
And
and-
if somebody says, I've got enough time off, I want money, that's not possible for them?
It wasn't this winter.
On occasion,
Crisis.
Jim, just to throw you an example out here, Mayberry. I wanted to kind of throw a little jingle out there to give the guys, and there has been a problem with getting them the money, but during Mayberry, we had water leaks and Mayberry going at the same time, and I told them that week we would pay them overtime. And so they did get a little cash. But for the most part, they are on comp time. The 4th, they will be on comp time. They will be coming in working for an hour and a half off per hour worked.
And legally,
That's
we know-
because of available funds, or that's because of, okay, that's because of available funds. Typically, in a normal year where we didn't have all the snow, all that,
It would be overtime.
or a choice?
No, previously, under the previous administration, it was overtime.
Okay, gotcha.
When,
This is all based on because of the crisis we had with all the snow. Okay.
exactly, you got it.
And legally, we can go back and forth without any danger of being in violation of the state board of accounts.
Right, because State Board of Accounts, of course, is here now. Mike and I met with them last week, and part of the audit process, yes, we are in
That's
compliance
all I'm
with,
concerned about. is
yeah.
making sure.
Because,
Marcia, on their timesheet at the bottom, there's a line, comp time or paid overtime. Depending on which line Julie puts that in when she does the time cards, is whether they receive comp time or overtime. And that is determined by me and Jenny ahead of time.
Anything else for Ray?
Any other questions?
Got a mower Will could use?
Or buy?
Do what?
Said you have a mower Will could use?
Will's on his own.
And an 18-year-old to operate it. All right, thank you. Oh, this next one says town council.
okay, so,
Who
yes,
gets that one?
me, please. Go ahead, pass it down. Chris, I have one for you as well.
Looks like it's
It's a
easy read.
huge, and there's one for Laura in there as well. Did I give you, no, there's one in there for Laura. Maybe there are 3 left, there should be, okay. Yes, so, of course, we have visited for years and have never increased the council's salary in years and years and years and years. So what I did, I obtained the 2017 AIM salary survey. 2018 is not 100% completed yet. They're still receiving from municipalities the salaries, so I used 2017. I compared the county to what they make, and I also, Brazil and Lowell are comparable to the town of Danville, so I put those 2 in there as well so that you could see what their council makes, their council president makes. And it was asked of me to also put town manager in there because we may be looking at doing something there if Gary decides to retire or whatever. So I did the same as far as the town manager salary goes, so you guys could see that.
What's Gary's salary right now?
84,000 to round it.
But what are we? Don't know.
5,800, and the council president receives 6,000, and that's, of course, rounding as well.
Let me tell you, that extra 200 is not worth it.
Tell me.
Just public, just
Tell me.
my opinion.
So I strongly recommend and propose as the clerk treasurer that the council receives a raise this year.
Sorry.
Do we vote on that now?
No, we don't. But this is something for you guys to process. Behind this first page is the salary survey, like I said, so you can look at any town and city and see their population, how many employees they have. And it also includes the fire chief, the police chief, the patrolman, school resource officer, accounts payable, accounts receivable, clerk treasurer, water superintendent, everybody. So you can review that, because in August, when Umbaugh and I present to you at the second meeting in August, I will bring forth then the salary spreadsheet that I do every year. So I'll have that information along with, if we are able to give raises, the 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever you guys advise me to forecast out, and you'll have this to digest in the meantime.
Any questions about town council? Okay. All right, clerk treasurer.
No changes for my budget.
Thank you.
The only thing that I would like to say is that as part of the audit process, and there have been so many changes for everybody, this is just not my department, but there's been so many regulations brought forth the last 2 years with the Department of Local Government and the State Board of Accounts as far as testing goes and compliance and reporting goes. I am spending 30% of my time doing reporting for the State Board of Accounts and the Department of Local Government Finance. They had suggested that maybe in 2019 or 2020 that we could add another employee. We may be able to shift some responsibilities and not have to do that, but that in my department, as well as the administrative office, that can be a percentage, a high percentage of that can be paid for by utilities. So that's something just to think about in the future. Gary and I had talked about maybe trying in the future to share an employee, because there's been so much talk in the public about our website and administrative duties and different responsibilities that maybe we could encompass one employee to, I don't know if that beast exists, but maybe we could do something like that. So that's just something to throw out down the road to think about. That's all I have.
Laura, you want to take care of the town manager budget?
Has no changes.
Excellent. Laura, you want to take care of the planning?
Planning has no changes.
Laura, you want to do building? Is that Barry?
I have no changes too.
Okay.
But I can explain a little bit of where this money's spent. Most of it's salaries. The rest is training, because I have a few certifications. I have to do continuing education. And then there's office supplies, which goes for permit cards. And obviously the rest is self-explanatory, and other services is for any incidentals that come up. The new equipment is for, flashlight, inspection camera, things like that, which I haven't bought. But if you go back and look at the previous years, a lot of those items aren't spent. They're just there just in case I need that equipment. Haven't had to yet, but I rarely spend the whole budget. That's it.
Barry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
When Gary returns, we are going to budget this, and we usually wait anyway until we receive the anticipated revenues, which we're about a month away from, so we're going to wait for him to return. One thing, though, that we have talked about is taking a police officer out of that, so that's something that we're looking at and moving them to the general fund. It's not necessary that we do that. It's been recommended, but it's by Umbaugh and Associates, but it's not a necessity, especially next year.
Well, as more economic development projects come forward, it'd be nice to have money available if incentives are considered or
Right, exactly. And then I don't know, Laura, you and I haven't talked, or maybe we have, if you want to pay the redevelopment commission out of edit, the board, I don't know if we need to budget, because I know we need to pay that board.
That's what my note is on here, is that we talked about paying the RDC out of edit.
Okay.
It's directly economic development related. And that is paid, so.
And then parking, you guys, you want to say anything on parking, Chief Rainey?
This officer puts another officer on the street while he's doing his parking duties and pass.
Good move.
And then law enforcement, continuing education. And
Chief, on revenues from the range fees, does that come from other municipalities, other police agencies?
Different departments rent
Okay.
for their training or qualifications.
it's usually from the county, like Avon, Plainfield, Hendricks County uses it as well, Brownsburg, the Airport Authority.
It's busy, I can hear it.
It is very busy. And we collect $200 annually per agency for that, so.
Maybe we need to bump that
I was
up.
gonna say, that seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Chief, are there very many ranges around the metropolitan area? I know there's one in Indianapolis. It seems to me we get a lot of different departments coming out to our range. I mean, it's a nice range. Are they coming to us because we're inexpensive, or are they coming to us because we're the only game in town, or?
Right, that's all. There's really not too many ranges around. Very, us to open up ways we've been working on. 2 years ago, we opened.
Does the 2,000 cover any of our expenses? Got some electricity out there, and I don't know if we're buying targets for everybody or if they supply their own.
Everyone supplies their own ammunition.
Okay.
They may have. We really don't have that.
Mr. Graves.
Guys will maintenance, PW, that's the grass. Third, the road, new places. Been a multi-agency project way before I.
And I will tell you as well that Chase Wilson and I think a couple of the other officers took the shrapnel bullets and recycled them, and we received quite a bit of revenue from that a couple months ago. So I can't remember that exact, but I think it was over $1,000, wasn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot, a lot of brass. Wow.
Who runs that facility, chief? Like, who opens the gate and who makes sure?
Mainly done by, we have two arms instructors, J.D. Settlemeyer and Brian Link. Works days, one works nights. Opened by them. Our training. When other agencies.
Thank you.
One of these years, we're gonna have to bump up that.
I was gonna say, I bet they pay 400 and wouldn't bat an eye.
I think you're probably right.
Which is something, Chief Rainey, if you want to do research on, because Will and Laura right now are working on our citation fees and our codification. So I know they plan to come before you guys, I think the end of July, 1st of August, sometime here. So if that is something that you feel like would be fair to increase, we could present it along with those, and then it's just one sweep on the codifications.
Or if you feel like the 200 is fair enough.
Have a dog in this fight. Interject, if Chief Rainey would be interested in calling it a reclamation fee, because at some point when you clean that range, it's going to be a hazardous material situation.
Lead.
Again, if we're going to look at increasing the fee, it might not hurt to call it and put it in like a equipment replacement fund. Have it there for when you do repairs on the range. With the academy, when they replaced that facility and they dug all, it was millions of dollars. Ground were all done.
That might be an idea. Stick them too bad, but, you know, that idea of a reclamation fee or a hazardous waste, whatever you want to call it.
Cleanup fee.
And if it was set in like a fund that was just set aside specifically for that. Get it for the blank. Is it self-reverting fund? Yeah. So it can only be used for the range. Maybe something to look at, so
Well, we would have to, yeah, that would
you've
be.
got sustaining fees. Okay, non-reverting. Let's knock this out, kids.
Well, he's already done non-reverting. He did non-reverting with Park.
CCI. Anything there?
No change, Barry, no changes in CCI, correct?
No, just stay the same.
CCD.
That's another that Gary and I are going to work on when he returns. Something that I haven't brought up tonight that I need to bring up, that the department heads all know this, but when you're looking at this budget, you need to remember that some funds were encumbered, and each department head and chief has backed out their encumbrances from last year. So some of these balances, and I'll bring those forward to you again when we actually present the budget, but some of these do have encumbrances in them. That reminded me when I'm looking here at CCD, but, so Gary and I will work on that, and we'll stay in communication via email and things, so you guys have information as we receive it.
All right. Then we flip through a couple and get to LSR.
Yep, LRS.
Sorry.
And that's Ray. Ray is LRS and MVH.
Okay. Those.
And that's another one where, you can come on up, Ray, but there are encumbered funds from the community crossing grant that we will back out because they had a match on the, for paving. Oh, I'm sorry, LRS.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I am MVH.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself. You're right, Dennis, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Which one was you on, Jenny?
We're LRS. I was on MVH by mistake.
Okay.
We're on LRS. 706. I was getting ahead of myself.
Local roads and streets, I see no changes there, do you?
Nope.
Nope.
And 140,000, and there is encumbered money in there. And on MVH is basically the same thing, I think. Yes, there's a note there that says encumbered money in here from community crossing grants, and that's to help pay for the paving projects that are going on. And the 708, 500, 430 community, and that is matching for the paving. And I believe that is all for me tonight.
No.
No?
You had your, didn't you want to look at a replacement for your auger? Wasn't that out of MVH? Didn't you want to propose that, or am I not thinking right? I have a note for $5,600 auger.
That was Julie and James putting that together.
Okay,
And
so Julie.
Yes, I think there was and thanks for reminding me.
Sure.
Yes, that is in here.
Okay.
Julie, you want to speak on that?
So that is an increase to other services and charges.
Now then, I believe that's it for me tonight. And I would like to inform the board, Washington Street is poured. 1 week, we can open it as soon as it is striped and the traffic signals are put back in.
Sign our initials
1
on
week,
1 week,
so that's changed from when you and I talked.
yes. Kai finished it today and said 1 week it can be open. I have contacted the striping company. I will call them in the morning and let them know it's ready to be striped, and the state highway has to install the traffic signal loops.
How's the rest of the paving going? How's the rest of the paving?
Still on hold, we're waiting on Barry.
Not my fault. You keep finding wastewater pipes.
I'm sorry I brought
Not
this
the muck
up.
I'm worried about.
I know, that's what I was gonna say.
muck.
I don't think it's the bug.
Thanks, Rick.
Ray, when do you expect to start then on Jefferson?
1 month. Kai Phillips has another job to do in between the two, and he asked me to give him a month.
We're still good for Rotary on 14th.
You and I will work with that all together. All right, thank you.
Wastewater.
Now, I will say before Jerry starts, now that we're to the utilities, there are not any in-code accounting software reports in here. I am having trouble with in-code and accounting, or accounting software. I'm working with them. Jared from One Choice was in today. So the numbers and everything are correct. You just don't see our accounting software reports for utilities. And that is the reason why.
I basically summed my report up in 2 or 3 pages in the front there. All of my revenue comes from the ratepayers when they use water. And that's split up, that pie goes to many places, mostly bonds and interest, salary and wages, the pilot to the town, and the other lines. And then as far as my budget goes that I control, I am looking at a 1% increase overall, and that increase is only coming from chemical and sludge. Basically, we have to add more chemical to get the nutrient removal. That creates more sludge. So we have to have more money for that. But it's a 1% increase, but I'm still 2% under my projected income. And that's basically my budget.
Any questions for Jerry? Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Water Department.
Good evening. Usually, I'm pretty much under budget for the most part because I'm pretty tight on everything. But for this next year, we've got some big projects coming up. Most of them I have no changes. Professional service, I went average of what we normally do. That's local engineering and stuff like that we do on that. We have new equipment. I have no change, but we have highlighted new well pumps. We're going to be cleaning some wells this next year, and then we're going to increase the capacity of the pumps to get more water out of the ground, get more out of the bigger wells. Down here on this 6201, the material supplies projects, if you notice, it was 150,000, I'm increasing to 250. Reason why that is, I have a proposed project on East Main Street and 200, going north and looping the water main in to Whisperwood. Typically, that subdivision now is a dead-end subdivision. If we have an occurrence just right past Templar Drive, we got approximately 300 homes out of service at one time, and that's not real acceptable. And by looping, the total looping project is about 6,200. That'd be a two-phase. I want to do the initial 4,000 feet from the roundabout up to Whisperwood, tie in the backside of the fairgrounds, loop that in, and then loop Whisperwood, and that gets a flow. That will help circulate water. That way, if we do have an occurrence, we can backfeed the other way, and also it helps our fire protection area also. I'm sure the fire department, well, Mark's not here, but would like that. But and I know the town is looking eastward bound, any growth potential in that way. So that would do that. I've been trying to put that project together for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been needing it. And then, of course, so part of our income source now by having fire hydrant fees come in, that's a positive cash flow every month, about $18,000. And we try to manage that. And then also, too, in some of these, I've got at the bottom of your thing, you see the hospital water tower and that totals. I've separated those out like I've got the materials and supplies. That's part of that $400-some thousand projected for that one water main project. And then I separated out increase for the engineering as well as contractual consultant of installing it. And then those totals. But when you come down to see those totals in there, those will probably be reduced about 15% when we go to the bid process. Because typically on a water main project, we used to bundle it together. The contractor would buy the materials per whatever, and he'd mark that up. But what we do, we put that out separate. We get our price. That way, there's no markup on that. And then we basically budget, put out for bid for labor to install only. And then that way, we get a little better pricing on everything like that because they don't have to mess with any of that. And we've got everything. And it's been pretty successful. I've been doing that for about 30 years. And it's been working out pretty well. And then, of course, so we have the hospital water tower for next year up for it to be painted. Its estimate was $224,000 on that. If it goes like this year, I think we had 195 for the one out west, and it come in at about 155. So we'll probably had some reduction in that. And then also, too, we're working on the hospital expressed interest in participating in painting that, and hopefully their portion of it will probably, hopefully, up to $125,000 of that total cost. So that'll free up some monies for that. And I know I work with Jenny, and I know we may get into that fire hydrant fund, but I think we've probably, about $350,000 in that right now.
Yes.
So we're going to spend about $155 out of it this year. So as next year comes, or this next year, we'll be building that account up. And we've always got some extra money in plant replacement that we could divert that funds to do that, and that could be paid back.
Is it, Jimmy, the
Yes,
fire hydrant fund? Who's paying us $18,000 a month for fire hydrant?
That is on your water bill. If your water bill, you have a thing up fire protection, fire fee up there. I think it's like $6 for a 5 inch 3/4. Every month you pay that.
That's stormwater.
No. Yeah, something like that, but it's based off the size of your meter, and then that's a positive flow. There, a few years back at the Waterworks Convention, some accounting stuff, we're considered a fire protection system. And why not we collect that fees, but typically that fee went straight to the general water budget. Well, I found out that you can divert that money and not go to general water and put it in another account for upgrading, painting water towers, putting hydrants, water main construction, any of that stuff that deals with the distribution system. And that way you can kind of, it's a little more, you know what you got coming in and doing it like that. And then, of course, so we've got some increase in materials and supplies. We buy water meters, and those water meters are not cheap. They're about $130 a piece. But we talked about scrap. We've probably scrapped about, I think we got almost $6,000 in scrap this year that we've taken, and we recycle the guys. When we get the old meters, we tear them all apart, separate stainless from brass and all that, and you get a little more money out of it. So that's taken down to race trash. So that goes back in, but it's not a lot of money compared to the big picture. But might add on these projects, once that water main project's done, it's kind of trying to balance the old with the new. You know, we got some old stuff that needs to be done, but there's some new stuff that needs to be done. And then same way with the tower painting, you're looking, this is a 15-year deal. I know I won't be here for the next one, so, but somebody will. But hopefully, and then a lot of these stuff that we're trying to do, I'm trying to get things done before I plan on leaving and do that. In cycles and maintenance and where we do that, that's where we have those costs, expenses. We do that on 5-year cycles, like exchanging the pumps, you know, get them rebuilt and stuff like that, just preventive maintenance. And it's just an ongoing thing. And you know, as the town grows, we have to be able to keep up with it. And that's why the budget is so much more expensive and why we do these projects. But we need to try to do something like that to keep up because the age of infrastructure is terrible. You know, it's just 20 years has gone by and you go, where'd that time go? So you don't think of that stuff. But until we get the budget and then you see those big numbers and do that and try to funding. And that's why I kind of urge too, on these budgets, you as a council need to look into rate structure. I know nobody likes to see that, but it's just one of those things. And I have some good ideas well, I think there's good ideas on some stuff to where it wouldn't increase as much on that. I think we talked about that because right now where rate structure is, you're getting credit, you're getting a decreasing dollar amount per more water you use, it's cheaper. You're getting a discount. You shouldn't get a discount. It should be a flat rate straight across, and then you're going to, it's like putting a penny in a penny jar every day. Eventually, you're going to build that penny jar up instead of just trying to get it all at once. But we need to look at that for these budgets cost more every year. And just like when we had the increase in power 3 or 4 years ago, 17% from Duke, we didn't budget for that. But now, by changing light bulbs and stuff like that, we're able to hopefully decrease some of that overall cost and putting more efficient stuff in. And that's what we're trying to do. And like I say, when we spend something, it's pretty high dollar for the most part when we try to do big projects. But you're looking at longevity, 50 plus years. So, but you got to be able to maintain some of that. And that's why we do that. But yeah, I try to. So I know my portion, I think in the total on the back is like 1.1. And I think last year total water budget was 1.7. But remember, I'm trying to do some projects and do like that. And hopefully should be able to fund those this next year. And sooner the better. But entertain any questions if anybody has any. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Last, certainly not least, stormwater.
I have just moved a few things around. No change to the overall budget, but there is a note on the second page. On the first page, there's a note about summer help for $15 an hour. I don't know if you have that one or not, but if you do, we had talked about summer help, but after thinking about it for quite a while, summer help's really not going to be a good fit for me simply because it's a specialized position. You can't just send somebody out to do inspections. You can't send them out to do stormwater stuff. And you surely don't want them in this building doing maintenance because this building can be tough. So the thought process was
to inflate a raft and put it up the stairs.
Well, now you got me there. That was a good one. See, you threw me off there, Mike.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. I can get right back on track. But the idea is, the last 2 years, the idea would be the town's growing, so there was a point last year I actually spent $26,000 more than revenue we had come in, and that was because of purchase of a camera. This year, we're going to spend more additional money, if you guys approve that, because of the paving project and the desire by me mentioning old infrastructure would be, the stormwater infrastructure is as bad or if not worse than the water or the sewer. So it really behooved us not to do that project, short time frame, but that project's going to come in about $85,000. So if you look at the overall work that's being done, the type of materials, that's a pretty good deal. But with that being said, next year, I have 2 other large projects that I don't think they're going to fit in the budget. So we've got 3 continuous years that we're really spending more revenue than we're bringing in. So that's why 2020 was the date that I had put down on here, simply because we're going to be generating more revenue. There was also some additional salaries that Stormwater's paying part of wastewater superintendent's salary. I talked to Jerry, and he said, there's no reason why you should be paying that, and he said, fine. So there's additional money there. So I think that year I can ask for a full-time employee and get a little bit of relief and, focus on a little bit more on administrative stuff that I should be doing. Yeah, there's a lot on here that gets spent, professional services. A lot of that will be utilized in the next 2 years for design on a couple of projects. That's really the only thing I have for the budget.
Any questions for Barry? Okay, thank you. Anything from the public? Laura, anything?
Thanks for your time tonight.
I provided 2 handouts from AIM to you guys when you got here this evening. You can just review those. It's very helpful, especially probably Tom for you and Chris, who's just starting out. I was given those at the retreat, the budget retreat, and it's just very helpful information that how we figure property taxes and circuit breakers and tax levies and recommendations on your budgeting. So wanted to let you guys know that. Again, the timeline, August the 20th, Umball and myself will present the budget. And any questions you guys have between now and then, department heads, and you guys just email me or call me. And it will go before the council. September 17th will be the public hearing, and the final approval is October 1st. So we have plenty of time. And
Okay, thank you. Tom?
I'd like to request any emails that go to the police department or from the police department this way. I'd be copied in on it, please.
Ooh, communication. Always like that. Dennis?
For the fake-related Tony Jeffersons of the world, I am in 100% for 2 school resource officers. I just want them at the schools 100% of their time. Thank you.
I want to make a public statement.
Wait. No, we're going around the horn. Jim? Good. Okay. You're next. Okay. I'll circle around. I'd like to thank the department heads and the town staff for working on this budget. I know it's never easy. I know it's never fun, and it's always contentious, and I know it's a living, breathing thing that changes all the time, as emergencies and needs arise. So thank you, and just know that we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as you guys are. You live with this thing day and night, and we see it kind of in snapshot mode. So when we ask the questions, and we ask tough questions, and we ask questions because we don't know what's going on, you just have to bear with us. And I do appreciate your patience on that. Marcia, an addendum.
I want to add to Mr. Wynn's comment that I have been accused more than one time of being this fictitious Tony Jefferson account. I will tell Dennis, and I will tell everyone in this room, I don't have a clue who is Tony Jefferson. I honestly have no clue, but I will tell you all, it is not me, and it is not anyone related to my family, and I will swear on my family's life to that. So don't ever accuse me of that again.
No one accused you of anything.
I know you didn't.
And I've never thought it was you, just so
Sure
you
you
know.
did, because you've told everybody
No,
that.
I have not.
Adjourn meeting. Please.
Meeting adjourned. Drive safe. Enjoy this wonderful evening because we're going to get rain for the next couple of days. And then it's going to